we'll jump into our first question of this week from Juliana. Lack of sleep with a baby. Hi, Rob. How are you? I wanted to ask you about parenting and a healthy lifestyle. For me, not having a good night's sleep is the worst. It makes me super hungry all day, bad mood, etc. And it gets really hard for me to recover during the week with regular sleep hours. I need like a full day in. Even before I heard from your podcast, my worst fear about having babies has been the potential lack of sleep, but I wonder how people deal with this. Are there any obvious strategies our ancestors did and we don't, or something like this? Do you have any suggestions? Thank you, Juliana.
Do you want to jump in on this since you're actually the mother of wolves?
That's kind of funny.
The Green Queen, mother of wolves.
Not the mother of dragons, but the mother of wolves.
Mother of wolves.
Gosh. So our first daughter, Zoe, for the first 3 months was a rough, it was a rough go. Like we did not get very much sleep the first 3 months. But then for whatever reason at the 3-month mark, she just started, I don't know if we got our routine down or what, but it was like clockwork. We'd put her down around 6:30 and she would sleep all the way through till pretty much 6:30 the next morning. Sagan, didn't really sleep through the night without waking up until she was 2. And even after then would have like nightmares, night terrors. Yeah. And even still, she's 5 now, will occasionally, it's much less frequent, but she'll occasionally wake up, every 2 to 3 weeks and be crying.
Right.
Our ancestors, this is a super controversial topic and I'm not recommending anything, but like the co-sleeping scenario, like having a warm body next to you, I think was a way that our ancestors handled this. And we also in the past lived in more of a communal scenario where, the aunt took the child or the grandma or somebody, would take the child so that the mom could get rest and the parents could get rest. Today, we don't tend to live in close proximity to close family. It's cool on the one hand
that we have mobility because it affords us the chance to live where we want to live and work opportunities. But the downside is it tends to fragment that social connectivity. When we had Zoe, my mom was still alive. And I feel like we may have mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I asked my mom, I was like, what did you do? Like, did anybody help you? And she was like, oh yeah, your grandma stayed with me for 3 months and your aunts each stayed with me for a month. Alternately within that. So between the women that were, and my mom had already had 3 kids previously. And so among the women there was like 130 years of like child rearing experience for one. So like figuring out latching and colic and, just all this stuff. Like you had some good wisdom there and some support, just somebody to take the pressure off a little bit. Our dear friend, Nancy Meenan, Dave Warner's wife, came and stayed with us for a week and basically
we were
did
so
the night
desperate
shift.
at the 3-week mark with Zoe.
Yeah.
And because we didn't have any close family, sisters, cousins, anybody around helping. So we were like, we have this new little baby that we need to keep alive, and we had no idea what we were doing, and it was so hard. Latching is so hard. Let me just say, for all of you that think like, okay, I need to prepare for childbirth, and well, this was me. I need to prepare for childbirth. I read every book about having a baby and birthing a baby, but I didn't read anything about latching because it seemed like, oh yeah, they just put the baby right here, and they just it's not that easy.
But I was just having a conversation on the airplane, interestingly, with a primatologist, and somehow this topic came up. And even within chimpanzee and bonobo families, if there is a loss of culture, like if the older generations die or they get separated or something, they don't inherently know how to do this. So there are some animals that do the whole feeding of the young on an instinct level, and then more sophisticated animals like primates and elephants have culture and they have to learn how to do it. So even in our closer relatives, there's a cultural transmission, and apparently like there's quite a bit of like shenanigans going on with like, no, try this, no, try that. And that's just in, chimpanzees.
You're really good at
So, and not to run you over on this, but this will be a little bit controversial and not potentially well received. But in the past, we tended to have kids earlier. We just did. And we had kids not as spring chickens and managed to motor through it. But when you think about
But it was hard. I mean,
hard.
I mean, we had Zoe, I was 34, and Sagan at 36. And you can imagine how when you're like 19, 22, 23, like you can stay up super, super late. You can pull an all-nighter and yeah, you feel tired the next day, but I mean, you bounce back pretty quickly. When you're 34, 36, older, it's hard. Like it definitely affects your body much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Obvious strategies.
The sleep that you can
get help. I mean, try to if you're planning on having a child, you know, if you can get friends, sisters, other moms to just be near you and help and somebody to stay with you for some period of time. Or
even doing a nap during the day, having somebody that could be there to hold the kid, carry him around during the middle of the day so that you could get a nap. And then all the sleep hygiene stuff just goes on steroids, you know, because the little snatches of sleep that you can get, you have to get it. And the one thing you have to remember, it's a little bit like a psychedelic trip. You have to keep telling yourself it will change, and it will, and you will get through it. In the midst of it, it feels like it's never going to fucking end. You think you're going to die, but you won't, and you will get through it, and it does change, and the kids do eventually learn, you know, get into a pattern where they sleep better. Even Sagan, who it took a while, but she eventually entrained and started sleeping better.
Right.
Anything else you can think of?
No, it's just one of those phases of life, and you get through it. Like Rob said, this too shall pass.
Although it feels like you are literally going to pass into the nether realms. Yeah,
it does.